The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of the staff and management of Salem Media of Hawaii.
Welcome to Generations Radio, where the focus is on our seniors and their families. We are here each Saturday afternoon from 5 until 6 p.m., bringing you resourceful information with our radio team of professionals in the field of aging. Stay with us for the next 1 hour as we explore different ways to make life more exciting and meaningful for our extraordinary seniors. Right here on AM 690 The Answer. And now, here is our host and the publisher of Generations Magazine, Percy Ihara.
And happy holidays to everybody here listening to Generations Radio. Melissa, my co-host here, Melissa Mansfield from Ultras Medical. Happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays to you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I want to start off the show. I'm very thankful because you've been a great, resource for me, but also helping out with scheduling our guests. And, that's how I learned, 13 years ago? 12, 13
Well, it's an
years
honor
ago.
for me because I'm now following in your footsteps, and I am learning a lot and meeting a lot of people in our community.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Like today. In fact, longtime friends, Mr. Stephen Yim, the estate planning attorney with Stephen Yim Law Firm, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, Stephen, I know you're shy, but I know you pretty well. So tell our audience a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, I'm actually an introvert, and so the books tell us introverts don't go out and go talk on the radio. Go sit under a tree and read a book. However, they say that if there's something more significant than your introversion, you ought to draw yourself out, and that's why I'm happy to be here today. And thank you for Melissa and Percy for inviting me today. I do estate planning, which is help people make informed decisions about their wishes, and our job is to help communicate those choices to loved ones and family members so we can honor choices. Whether it's what happens when they pass away, it's also what happens if they cannot speak. We are actually the voice for our clients when they're not able to speak. So thank you. I'm looking forward to talking with you today.
Yeah, and you actually do a full spectrum of estate planning, not just posts and medical directives, but you do wills, trusts, power of attorneys, but there was trust planning, estate planning, yeah?
Estate planning encompasses such a wide myriad of things. And yes, we do all of it. I'm actually a tax geek. Went to tax school after law school and worked for the Internal Revenue Service.
That's right.
And I feel that while tax planning and probate is what people come in and they say, I want to do tax planning, underneath it is really a more human experience. And taxes and probate, they'll get taken care of. But what sustains throughout life is our relationships with each other. And so we really help to preserve relationships. In fact, the definition of a trust is building relationships.
Really?
That's
Well,
what it
trust,
means.
yeah, I guess so.
Trusting
Yeah.
each other.
And so we kind of get mixed up about what we're really doing. And
It's a good way to put it. And thank you for being one of our original writers and still writing for the Generations Magazine. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, Percy.
The other fourth person today, ladies and gentlemen, is Mr. Michael Yee, certified financial planner with Ameriprise Financial, and another original writer for the magazine. So thank you, Michael. But yeah, explain to our audience what your kind of short elevator speech or what you do.
Given the opportunity, most people want to live their life by choice rather than chance. And in fact, what I learned is people who are proactive are more likely to get to where they want to go. And what they do is they plan. So I help people plan their lives out and recognize that people come in different sizes and shapes, money-wise, family-wise, and my job is to help them get there.
Yeah. As a financial advisor, Michael, you've done a great job. Now, I did want to first of all say happy holidays to everybody, but also thank you for the calls and emails. We've been doing this almost going on 2 years now, and now almost every day I get a call or email.
Wow, that's something.
Every day, and especially when this last week, I don't know why, but I get calls about security services. Somebody asked, which was, if you're listening here, you brought up a very good point, senior dentistry. So we I'm looking for one of our dentists to write an article about that, but home security for their parents, because I know a lot of you listening out there are baby boomers. So thank you very much. And today is a very important topic that we don't talk about. And Stephen, you can probably start off, but Stephen Yim here, the estate planning attorney, we started working on this 2 years ago.
Quite a while ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. And you formally set up a nonprofit. So why don't you explain the Heartfelt Foundation?
Yeah, a couple years ago, our group of us set up this Heartfelt Legacy
Now,
Foundation
for legacy, yes.
with Michael Yee has been very supportive of it and participates in it as well. And thank you, Percy, for helping us along.
Yes.
One of our major goals is to help promote awareness of end of life planning, because we found that statistically, what is happening across the country and probably around the world is that 30% of individuals get to make an end of life decision. They take the time and effort to make an end of life decision. And only 30% of those choices are honored and respected.
Wow.
We find that so much conflict is happening among family members where they're not talking to each other, not about money, but about making decisions for their loved ones who cannot make decisions. And guilt, anxiety, and depression among the survivors is elevated. Guilt doesn't seem to go away. A couple years ago, we were Percy and you and me and Mike met that guy on the docks
Yes.
at
Gordon Biersch.
Gordon Biersch, where he came in off a big ship,
That's right.
and he spent some time with us. This gentleman started a different process where it's not a box on a piece of paper. There's an evolution of end-of-life planning where we didn't have any laws, and so a lot of court cases went to the Supreme Court. From those court cases, we got a form that is a check-the-box form, A or B.
Right.
But the problem is no one's life is an A or B question. We live in the depth and breadth, the in between the A and B of the choices, and we cannot live in the black and white legalities. So this gentleman who came, Bud Hams, he started this process of communication where it's client-centered, process-driven, and value-centered. So it's a process where we start early on in normalizing a conversation, actually normalizing a vocabulary where each of us gets the opportunity to determine for ourselves what quality of life means. That when you're young, quality of life means something different than we're much older.
Sure.
And so it is a process. And Mike, maybe you can help us with the 3 phases of life, because no one says it better than you do. But the process is to understand for ourselves what quality of life means and get an invitation to talk to our family members and loved ones about what it is we think, so that we're all on the same page, and so that we have a much better chances of having our choices honored and respected.
Yeah. But most families and in hospitals, when you go to hospital, if you have a surgery or maybe if they say you have 6 months less to live, they always make sure that you have the Advantage Care Directive or the Pulse, right? So that we call that, and Bud Hams, who came into Hawaii, he's actually from Minnesota, right? And he talked about everybody's talking about the 3rd phase, right? So maybe you can explain that. What you're trying to do with the heartfelt is phase 1.
Yeah, actually, the 3rd phase is when families are in ICU, and we have ICU nurses tell us, when we break out the book to talk about end of life planning, and for the most part, what happens is we start asking them what quality of life means for our patients in ICU, and a lot of times they say, "What, you think I'm dying?"
Right.
And then the book closes, and it's not the time when to have the first conversation. When Bud Hams has 3 phases: first steps, second steps, third steps, and a lot of the communities, the medical communities, have been focusing on third steps. Third steps is when it wouldn't be unusual if you passed away within the year. Second steps is you've developed a chronic illness. First steps is if catastrophically suddenly, boom, you weren't here all of a sudden. Bud Hams has established these 3 steps, but we're starting way too late. And it's hard to have the conversation in ICU. When Bud Hams established this process, the statistics went from 1 out of 15 choices honored and respected to well over 90% of choices honored and respected. Guilt, anxiety, and depression among loved ones and family members went way down, and much less conflict. And he understood that if we normalize this process, make it part of the routine conversation that we have as we proceed through life, it will be much easier to have the conversation when we really need to.
I like how you said normalize it, because really we're talking about death. What do you want when you die? And I think that frightens people, because I see people shut down all the time when I talk about end-of-life care. Well, I'm not going to die anytime soon. And we're all going to die. We just don't know when.
You know what the surveys say? Surveys say that 7 out of 8 of us believe we are going to die one day.
Oh, well. And in their bed.
Now, just a secret. I think that they're wrong in the surveys. I think we are all going to die.
That's the baby boomers. You know that?
Yeah.
Most baby boomers don't even think that way. They're not going to die. I've had people literally tell me that, and it's amazing. They don't think. I just think they don't think that far.
I don't think they want to think about death.
That's true.
They don't want to think about
that's a
themselves
good one.
laying in a bed, unable to physically get up, use the restroom on their own, and feed themselves.
I have my personal experience is that I have a death anxiety. And this is part of the reason why I do this work is when I was young, I saw early deaths and they weren't necessarily explained to me. So for decades, I didn't understand death and I had a great fear of dying. There was no conversation. It was not safe to talk about it. This Professor Yalom, he's an existential psychiatrist. He wrote this book called Staring at the Sun. And his whole book was about our death anxiety, that we all face it. Our unique humanness is that we are aware of our own mortality. And there's a fear behind that, whether we express it or not. Now, if he just wrote the book and said we have this death anxiety, we'd get depressed because we're all going to die. However, his idea was that if we are courageous enough and we get invited to by Michael Yee and Percy and Melissa, those of us who are engaged in this for the benefit of people, while they may not see it that way, if we engage in the process of communicating where we make it safe enough, we can have meaningful conversations and make meaningful choices so that we can have a good life all the way through up until we pass away.
And a professor asked me one time, I had a death and dying class, and she said, do you want to have a good death or do you want to have a bad death? It's up to you. And having a advanced care directive or plan, you'll have a good death.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And we have such a great opportunity in Hawaii with so many engaged, passionate individuals here and skilled people in Hawaii. I understand you just got a master's and looking to get a PhD in
Thanatology.
I never heard of that before, but what a great PhD area. See, there are people here in Hawaii, and we have such a great resource here to put us in such a higher plane in helping, so we can go further than the form of it. We can get to what is underlying the form of it.
We lived longer than anybody else. We have a lot of time to work on this, right? So anyway, we're talking about advanced care planning, and with Ms. Melissa Mansfield from Altruist Medical, Mr. Stephen Yim, our local magazine estate planning attorney, and Mr. Michael Yee, who's with Ameriprise Financial, a certified financial planner. So we're talking about medical directives and postings like that, but really it's advanced care. In other words, we want to talk to you now while you're young or fit or baby boomer at a younger time so we can make clear decisions. So, Mike, I know you mentioned before different workshops, but I like the way you presented about the different phases in life called the go-go phase, the slow-go phase, and the no-go phase. So can you take a few minutes here just to explain that and how you convey that to your clients?
Yeah, the way I convey it is that in life we're going to go through phases. And those phases look like the first phase goes like this. This is when people are traveling, spending time with the grandkids. They're active, they're independent. And I call that the go-go phase of life. But sometime in the future, we're going to transition. And I'm going to transition to a phase that I call the slow-go phase. And that lawyers sometimes call it diminished capacity. That's a time maybe we need to start using a walker, or we may have cognitive impairment and need supervision. So that's called the slow-go phase of life. That's the beginning of long-term care. That's when sometimes we need help. Yeah, chronic illness. And that's where sometimes we have to pay to have people help us take care. Then eventually we're going to move to what I call the no-go phase, and lawyers will call that incapacity. And that's when you need care for just about everything. You're wheelchair bound, bed bound, and at the end of that no-go phase is end of life. End of life is the last 6 months to 1 year. And so in the financial circles, people often plan for the go-go phase. They think about retirement as travel and family. And then they think about end of life, skipping a step, going directly to end of life. And that's when I go to the hospital, I don't survive, and now I'm passing everything on to my children. They forget about the long-term care phase includes a slow-go phase and a no-go phase. And if you don't have a plan for that, number one, you could be jeopardizing retirement. You could be diminishing the ability to leave an inheritance. And you could be affecting relationships. Families sometimes have disagreements. It's just as easy for families to break apart as it is to come together. All of this can be planned, not by accident, by intention. Nothing's perfect. But when you start to plan, you increase the probability that you're going to live life on your terms.
I like how you mentioned live life on your own terms. I know when I did my advanced plan directive, it was kind of intimidating because you're really having to think of the last days or the last moments. Like, how do you want to spend it? I think the booklet that I was sent, asked very deep questions. What type of funeral do you want? Do you want flowers? What kind of music? Who do you want to be around you? I mean, these are really tough questions to imagine. I mean, I'm 42 years old and I'm thinking I'll probably live to 80, 85. So that's just an amazing thing to ask yourself. And especially with families getting involved. So when is the right time to start, planning? At what age?
I always say sooner is better than later.
Okay.
And starting is better than not starting.
Never.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we think that this kind of planning is for old people.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think just on the legal terms, the 3 cases that came out that brought us the understanding that we have the right to make a decision about end of life came from 3 young women. Karen Quinlan, Terry Shivo, Kathy Quizon. 2 women in their 20s. Terry Shivo, I believe, was in her 30s. One got into a car wreck. One might have had a drug overdose, and one we're not sure what happened. But they were all 3 not in a coma, and I'm not really, that's not a medical term I'm using as a layperson. But they didn't have quality of life. They were not able to communicate or move, and it was chronic. And the only way that they were going to survive was on respirators and ventilators, those kinds of things. Well, the parents went to court and had to ask the Supreme Court to remove the respirator. So we think it's for older people. However, that's why I really like Michael's 3 phases. And it's curious to me, it's interesting that from the medical profession, from the financial profession, from the legal profession, we're speaking the same process. Mm-hmm. Financial planners, Michael and others, go, slow go, no go. Medical professionals, first step 1, step 2, step 3. And lawyers, we use funny words. When you're well, diminished capacity and incapacity. Same phases. Go when catastrophically suddenly is all we can talk about. Running across the freeway, getting run over by a bus. 10% of us experience that. And so the best time to start is probably when you hit 18 to start thinking about these things. In fact, we have 18-year-olds who are going off to college doing advanced care planning, and we have them come in at Christmas time and the summertime to set up a power of attorney for healthcare because they can get injured on the mainland. And I had one mother who called me up about 3 years ago. Her daughter was in college on the Pacific Northwest, and she had gone on a ski trip, and she hit her head. Boom! She was in a hospital in the Pacific Northwest. She was unconscious. And the mom found out which hospital. She called the hospital, and she was trying to make decisions on behalf of her daughter, and she couldn't because the daughter was 18. Can you imagine being in Hawaii, 4,000 or 5,000 miles away, 5 hours away, and not getting any information about your daughter? So to me, the best time to start is early on. And Melissa, we talked about it before. It's normalizing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, so Stephen, with the Heartfelt Legacy Foundation, you're trying to get going with the first phase one. And so, what are those plans? Is talking to professionals that talk to seniors or talk to their clients? Is that the goal?
Yeah, that's we found out, and you've been with us from the get-go. We've made some mistakes and we've got some bumps and bruises along the way. But what we really found was we are in the best place to have the conversation because we can have it in a safe manner, and it's such an inviting place for us to do it because it's not so threatening when an estate planning lawyer says this is part of estate planning. We're going to talk about the advance directive, and here this is what it looks like. Or financial planner like Michael will say, we have these 3 phases in life, and part of our role on your behalf is to talk about what kind of care do you want. And so we have such a unique opportunity as financial advisors and lawyers and accountants to get started. And so it's like one big relay race in our community. We are all going to get started in our unique areas. So as financial planners and lawyers, the Heartfelt Legacy Foundation is supporting this unified effort among financial planners, lawyers, and accountants, and hopefully clergy and business people. When they speak to their clients, we can introduce this. And the idea is we've created a booklet called the Heartfelt Advanced Care Plan that we put together from all of the different arenas, medical, financial, and legal. All the booklets, we've put it into one place. It is one tool that we use to ask our clients to work through to get to an informed idea about what quality of life means to them. It's not a list of 100 things that could happen to you and pick it. It's to define what quality of life means. Where's the line in the sand for you? As we go through this booklet, we can build our own vocabulary with our clients so they can have a meaningful conversation rather than if I was a vegetable, pull the plug. And then the idea is for us to encourage our clients to have conversations with their family members so that we can honor and respect choices. In the next year, we're going to test it out. We have 20 people involved in this first test case where we're going to study how we did. We're going to collect data, and at the end of a year, with the help of some people at Queens and at Straub, I forget the name of their
HPH, Pacific Health.
Yeah, that we're going to put together a paper, and we're going to offer that to the communities and build on that.
Yeah. So is this something that the public can just call you at your office to work with this, or do you need to go through the attorney or the financial advisor?
That's a great question. They certainly could call us, and we talked about this before, that we would be very willing to have seminars if we gather a few people and encourage them to complete this booklet and see their lawyer about completing an advance directive and encouraging the conversation. We're looking at it more from our 20 people group to expand outwards towards our clients. Mm-hmm. So that we can grow from our foundation outwards. Mm-hmm.
You know what I really loved about this workbook? It asked you questions you would never think of. You think I'm going to be on a bed and not, really understand. But what if you do survive that stroke? Mm-hmm. Are you okay with somebody feeding you, like really hand feeding you? Really ask those important questions. Tube feedings. People don't think about tube feedings, not being able to swallow. So for the rest of your life, you will be fed through a tube. I mean, it really asks these tough questions.
Yeah. What we started doing, we went to the class, as Stephen said, is we set up a conversation that we have with our clients. And a conversation in the financial life that I was explaining is have you ever had a conversation with your doctor or your family about what concerns you most when you become seriously ill or at the onset of a chronic illness? And the interesting thing is, saying the right question prompts them to respond in a totally different way. I never know what the answer is going to be. But one time I said, I read the things I learned in class. And we said 80% of people want to have the conversation with the doctor, but only 7% actually do. So I asked this 3 husband, wife, and sister, did you guys have that conversation with your doctor? And they said, well, he gave me this form to fill out. And he said, go home, fill it out, bring it back. I said, how much time did he spend with you? Well, I said, the appointment's only about 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And so we got home and we didn't know what it was about and we didn't do anything. It's so interesting. And then I said, did you have a conversation about this? What is important to you when you're seriously ill? What worries you the most with your children? And I said, no, we didn't. I find that to be commonplace. And I've done this thing several times, and every time now I do it. And I talk a little bit. This booklet is the question and the conversation, because we don't have the question and conversation about something we never talk about. So this book is a guide to have a conversation first, to bring it out of you what you really want and think is most important. And then the next step is you bring the book back to me. I make a copy of it. And then later on, we're going to have a conversation with your family about the things you think are important. When we have conversations like this outside of crisis, it means that when we're in the crisis, everybody's heard the conversation before, and then they're going to go back to where we started, and we'll be on the same page. When we're on the same page, we may not be happy, we may not agree, but being on the same page is the difference between bringing families together and breaking families apart and honoring wishes. I've been successful many times over since the training. I have booklets out there and people to bring them back. So thanks to my buddy here, I supported his wish and wants, and it's become my wish and want too.
Yeah. So we're talking about advanced care planning. It's a topic this time of year, I think, because we see our families, we see at Christmas, New Year's. It's a good time. You know, I had several clients this week come in town, their children come in town. So I talked to them about their family, about financial, legal, just about what they need to do down the road. And I said, well, that's all fine and dandy, but, you know, we need to talk about long-term care. Have you shared your wishes with your children? So it's really, really important. So we're talking about advanced care planning with Mr. Stephen Yim and Michael Yee. And Melissa and I are going to take a short break, and then we'll be right back. So think about these situations in your own life or your own parents' life. And we'll be taking a short break. We'll be right back.
We will be right back with Percy Ihara from Generations Radio. If you have any questions or want to be part of our discussion, give us a call at 296-5467. That's 296-5467. This is Generations Radio on AM 690 The Answer.
Did you know 26 million Americans have kidney disease and most don't know it?
The day I was diagnosed, I didn't know what to do. I called the National Kidney Foundation, and the young lady who answered stayed on the phone with me and walked me through step by step. She too was surviving kidney disease, and she showed me there could be life after kidney disease.
Visit the National Kidney Foundation at kidney.org. Now you know.
Moon Physical Therapy is here to help you back to recovery. Moon Physical Therapy is located on Ward Avenue across from Sports Authority. Physician prescribed for motor vehicle accidents, workman's comp, or that body pain that comes from rushing to play without warming up. Also event cardiopulmonary rehabilitation with our one-on-one patient care. Moon's Aquatherapy heated endless pool allows for low-impact exercise with less pain on land. We will give you the right exercises to get you back to health. Ask your doctor to prescribe Moon Physical Therapy. Moon Physical Therapy. We achieve results.
Aloha, this is Martha Clopin.
And Al Harrington. Choosing the right Medicare plan not only saves you money, it also helps you avoid headaches and heartaches down the road.
We want to remind everyone
to listen to a Medicare Moment with Martha, Sundays from 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. as we help answer important questions on Medicare so you can stay healthy, wealthy, and wise all year long.
Call me at 543-2073, 543-2073.
I was an addict from the age of 13. I finally decided it was time for a change. I walked into the Salvation Army Adult Rehabilitation Center, and that got me ready for the real world. Now, I choose to be guided by Jesus Christ, and today, I'm building a powerful and promising future, free from drugs and alcohol.
Please shop at the Salvation Army family stores. With our discounted sales, your support through your purchase helps men live a clean, sober, and productive life.
Got Vegas on your mind? Get Vacations Hawaii on the line. Vacations Hawaii offers weekly 4 and 5 night Honolulu to Vegas packages, which include 3 meals daily from $6.99. Stay at Hawaii's favorite casinos: California, Fremont, Main Street Station, and Orleans Hotel. Vacations Hawaii will get you there in comfort on deluxe wide-body 767 planes with complimentary in-flight hot meal service. Vacations Hawaii's frequent flyer program gives you future travel discounts and credits. So if you're ready to win big, call Vacations Hawaii at 591-4777 or visit pointVacationsHawaii.com.
Today, more than ever, we local people are living longer than any other state in the Union, with more seniors, baby boomers, and caregivers. Generations Radio promotes the importance to be proactive as we all age. The radio team will focus on issues facing our seniors and their families, finding resources to navigate healthy aging along with financial, legal, and caregiving information. So join Percy Ihara from 5 until 6 each Saturday, right here on AM 690, The Answer. Focusing on the issues facing our seniors and their families today. Here's our Generations Radio host, Percy Ihara.
And welcome back and happy holidays to you, everybody. And thank you for tuning in every week, Saturday at 5 to 6, Sunday from 3 to 4, here on AM 690, The Answer. So this is a holiday time where, I like to talk about issues that you can talk about with your family. Today, we'll talk about advanced care planning. And yes, it's a pretty serious topic, but it's not something that we're going to make a decision after you listen to the show. So you just want to provide you some information and to move forward with what your old plan is, but we're trying to get it in advance, not when your mom's got 6 months left to live or in the IC unit, right? So anyway, Mr. Stephen Yim, a local estate planning attorney, Mr. Michael Yee, a certified financial planner, and Melissa, our gerontologist here. So we want to start with yours information, or we're going to start with Stephen's story?
I like Stephen's story.
Okay.
It's very heartfelt. When I read it this morning, I literally almost brought me to tears. I was like, what an amazing story.
Well,
so Stephen, you started a Heartfelt Foundation, and tell us that story.
Yeah, so Simon Sinek wrote a book called Start With Why. Why are you here? And the Heartfelt Legacy Foundation, why did I start this? It was a very personal experience, and Michael kind of touched on it, that we want to get this solidified, our ideas, so that when we're under stress, we really have a good knowledge of what's going to happen. And Melissa kind of reminded me that about the tea bag idea. I used to say to clients, you can only test the strength of I used to say it's an old Oriental saying. You can only test the strength of tea when you put it in boiling water. And my wife told me, well, you shouldn't use Oriental because that's offensive to Asians. So I said, okay. Yeah, then I started saying, what's an old Asian saying that you can test the strength of tea only when you put it in boiling water. Turns out Eleanor Roosevelt said it. So it's not an old proverb, ancient proverb. If you think about it, I had a friend, we went to a big city diner. He put a tea bag into tap water and nothing happened. And so, but when you put a tea bag into boiling water, you can really test and see the green tea moving about. And that's when you test our understanding of things and the strength of our relationships. Well, my personal experience, my father was an internist cardiologist, and we had a great experience right before he retired, where we were going around senior homes helping seniors make an advance directive. This was several years ago, way before this movement came about. Him from a medical point of view, me from how do you mark the box. So we were already engaged in that. Well, right before he retired, he came home one day with a booklet, and it was on the table, and I opened it up, and it was charting something. And the line was going from the top down on several pages, and he closed it right away. Boom, he said, "You weren't supposed to see that." I go, "Wow, that's kind of weird that he would do that." And so he said, "Okay, well, since you saw it, I was going to tell you anyway." So he gathered my brothers and I, 4 of us, and my mom, and he sat around our dining room table, and he said, opened his booklet up, and he said, "I've been charting my blood, and I found that I've contracted a very unusual form of anemia that turns into leukemia, and it's not curable. I could take chemo, or I could not take chemo. It might extend my life for 4 months, but I'd be really sick for 4 months, so I've chosen not to take chemo." And all the time I was sitting there, I was thinking, well, where's the third option? The chemo, not chemo, the cert, is there anything else? But there wasn't. And he said to us together that he made an end-of-life decision. That he said, with this illness, because he was a physician, he knew the course of this illness. He said, with this illness, I'm going to, in about 4 months, I'm going to go slip into a coma. And when I do not want to be placed on a respirator. What was really interesting was my reaction at the time. At the time, things were calm. There was no boiling water moment. My dad was very healthy at that time. He's just contracted this illness. So my reaction was, Dad, I understand. It was, I was arrogant in a way. I said, that makes sense. That's what I would choose. He was wrong about the timing. We were able to keep him with us or have him with us for 2 years. Wow. Relatively healthy. He didn't take chemo, so he didn't have to spend half the time in the hospital. And he told us through the course of that 2-year period, he gathered us together and he said, now remember, I made an advance directive, and when I do slip into the coma, I don't want to be placed on a respirator or ventilator. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I'll never forget my second reaction when he was in his bedroom in the bed, and the hospice nurse was standing to his right and my mom to his left, and me and my brothers were standing around the bed, and he slipped into that thing that I call a coma. I'm not sure what it was, but he wasn't coming back. And when he slipped into that coma, my immediate reaction was to yell out to the hospice nurse to put him on a respirator. It shook me up because for 2 years he had told us exactly what he wanted. Yet my reaction was to tell the hospice nurse to keep him going. That was my dad. He was never coming back. So you got to do something. I didn't say anything. And what stopped me, I believe, was that he was able to express his wishes clearly to all of us. So we're all accountable, not only to my father, but to each other, so that we can honor his choices at the worst of times. And to me, that was the biggest gift he gave our family, much greater than any financial gain we might have received from him. And from there, I thought, well, we can do this 2 ways. We can mark a box on a piece of paper and cross our fingers and hope that it works, while we already know statistically it doesn't, and keep doing that. Or we can make a sustainable change in our community by engaging in a process like my father invited us into, and where it's been studied and tested by Bud Hams, and change the way we do this. And it's turned out that we have skilled people from all across our community that we can do this together. We have so many resources now. And thanks to Michael and Percy and Lori Protzman and Michelle and Dr. Fishberg and Kokua Mao, we are building this community.
Yeah, by the way, for those of you listening, Kokua Mao is a local organization of all the hospice agencies. Is that correct, Melissa?
Yes.
And you've
Palliative
been to those,
care as well.
You've been to those meetings, right? In fact, all of us, I think, have been to those meetings, right?
Yes.
They meet second Thursday of the month
At St. Francis.
at St. Francis. You can go to their website, kukuamau.org, I believe, right?
Yep.
They have a really cool meeting. They call it, what is it called?
Palliative poo-poos, and that's at Queens.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Stephen, I like the way your dad did that, because it's true. In fact, I had a luncheon the other day, and my relative just told me that same thing. We're going to talk about this after Christmas dinner. I said, well, it's not a good time, Mom.
That's interesting.
Not a good time, Mom. But she did say that. But no, it's something that I think we all need to do that, because, I mean, I'm sure, Melissa, you've seen people fighting.
Oh, absolutely. I had a client this week, actually. Normally when I go to the home, I have a brochure, and in one of those brochures is the pulse form and then the advance directive. I go over what the pulse form is, and for those that are curious, it's for when EMS comes to the home, so they know what to do. If there's no pulse form, they're going to take you to the hospital, and they're going to perform all means necessary to keep you alive. Then they find out you don't want to have CPR. You would have rather just stayed at home and passed quietly. So I had a client say, well, why do I need the pulse form if they're already going to know what to do at the hospital? And I said, I don't think a lot of people know when they start performing CPR on someone that's 90 years old, you're breaking ribs. You're breaking bones. And she looked at me in horror. So it's knowing what really happens when that EMS gets to the home and starts performing the CPR.
Yeah. So the pulse, for those of you, maybe, is it physicians, POLST?
Physician's order for life-sustaining treatment.
Treatment, right.
Yeah.
And But it's important, because that's for when you're at home, or, you're not in the hospital yet, right? So
yeah,
first responders.
Actually, it's kind of complicated, and because Medicare is reimbursing physicians to, we had this conversation on the lobby, quote unquote, have a conversation. The post is first responders. You die at home, you're dead. Responders come in, and they are called to get you back. So they will do anything necessary to try and get you where your heart is beating and you're breathing again. Post is your opportunity to say, well, if I'm dead and a responder comes in, do I want that kind of treatment or not? It's all about timing. Some physicians are giving the form to their patients and saying to them, go home and fill it out. Well, our patients some of them are in the go-go phase of life, and they're thriving. And whether you fill it out and say, don't perform all kinds of treatment for me, or say, nah, don't give me CPR, I think that's not the right time to be making a post. Even if you said in the post, boy, I think that I want every treatment possible. If a first responder runs into the building and sees a green form on a wall and says, I know that's the post, I don't have to do anything, and they read it later, then we're in trouble. So we have to be really careful. Medicare is reimbursing for conversations, and Michael hit it on the head. It is not a form. We are so complacent these days. In fact, we used to speak our will. When we were about ready to pass away, we would speak our will in our voice. And then we got modernized. And we have all these templated paper documents. And medical care is advanced to the point where we have all these machines that go ping, ping, ping. And so we're staring too much at the machines and not focusing on the patient. We're looking at the bottom line financial without understanding our clients and what their values are in terms of finances. And legally, we're giving them a document thinking that marking a box on a piece of paper is going to reveal what quality of life means for us.
But the Medicare reimbursement is only through the doctors, right?
It's only for doctors to have a conversation. Right. We want to encourage the conversation, so we really have to be careful of thinking it's the form that is communicating for us. It's the communicating that is communicating for us. And what better way to communicate than speaking in conversation with the right vocabulary over time. So that's really dangerous. It's a great idea at the right time for a frail individual who has had several heart attacks. And if you perform CPR and you risk breaking all the ribs and probably it's not going to work anyway, maybe a pulse is appropriate at that time. But certainly not for a young person who's thriving and traveling a lot. They probably want to have CPR so that they can get stabilized, and then we can have the advance directive come into play and find out if you were chronically in a place where quality of life didn't exist anymore for you. Then we could make a decision whether to put you on a respirator or not.
Funny story. I actually filled out a pulse form and I took it to my physician, and she literally came into the room and said, "Can we have a conversation? I don't think you're ready yet." So I appreciated it, at that time.
That's great.
Yeah. So she was able to steer me into saying, I was like, okay, we'll wait on that. But here's my advance directive.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm kidding.
Because I'm so adamant on what type of care that I want and what I'm not willing to accept. I think quality over quantity for me. So that's where I have to go with it. But it was nice that she said, let's just hold off and let's have that conversation.
It's a great doctor to be able to be willing to have that conversation. And quality of life means different things for us.
Absolutely.
Have you ever read or seen the movie Diving Bell and the Butterfly?
No, I haven't.
It's about this guy, this French guy, writer. He's a writer. And in his 40s, he had a massive stroke. And he couldn't move anything other than he could blink one eye. and he was in the hospital. He wasn't going to get better, but he could. His cognitive abilities were fully there. People misunderstood. They were in the room saying, "Oh, he's in a coma. He can't hear us," and they were, but he was fully there. Diving bell is, they used to go diving. They put your body into a diving bell and they put you in the ocean, and you could dive that way. So it means he was stuck in his body. And butterfly meant he could take his mind and go wherever he wanted. He'd go to the beach and have a barbecue. So he saw a lot of quality of life, even though he couldn't move. And he wrote a book, Building a Vocabulary by Blinking His Eye. Diving Bell and the Butterfly, great book. I have another client who is claustrophobic. She had a injury to her back where if she got bumped a little bit, she'd go paralyzed. And she said, that would be the worst experience for me, to be paralyzed in my body, being able to think because I'm claustrophobic. Do you see the difference in quality of life?
Absolutely.
He could take his mind and experience life, and that was quality of life, even though he couldn't move. And for her, that would be torture.
Yeah, it's the movement of going outside and feeling the sun on your face. I mean, those type of things that you really have to think about.
For her, that was really important. But we want to understand each individual's unique idea of what quality of life means for them, such as yourself wanting to tell people what you understand about yourself so that we can honor that.
So do you think advanced care planning is working?
I believe if we do it the right way, it is. Statistically, when we engage in the process where it's client-centered, process-oriented, value-driven over a period of time, statistically well over 90% of individuals make up advance directive, and well over 90% of choices are honored and respected, and guilt, anxiety, and depression go way down. So if we engage in what we're doing right now, yes, we can make a significant, positive, sustainable difference in our community.
So I know the plan, Stephen, is to meet with certified financial planners, CPAs, estate planning attorneys. But Michael, since you're a financial advisor, you've been in business almost 30 years now. How do we get our financial advisor to have that conversation? Not to fill out the post or anything, but how do you approach your planner? How are we going to start approaching planners to make that a little bit part of the conversation? Because everybody today doesn't have time unless it makes some money, right?
That's correct. I think it's education. I wish we could get you and Stephen and myself to speak to more advisors in the community. And I think that all advisors are human beings, and educated and understanding, they'll practice looking at things in a more holistic way. I think because some of us get paid for doing stocks and bonds, some of us get paid for doing legal documents, right? Some of us get paid for insurance. But when you look at that you're in a professional position that's going to affect someone's life, there's more value that can be delivered if you're looking at the whole person. Oftentimes I say financial planning is a holistic process that too many people just look at retirement. And they could have a perfectly good retirement, but they forget to address the unexpected, forget to address long-term care. And when it happens, it could blow up a perfectly good plan. Too many people just focus on, if I see my lawyer, some people think that's financial planning. that as long as I take care of when I die, then I'm good to go. I'm going to pass everything on to my kids. I'm going to only live about 10 years. I saved enough money. I die, I leave my house to my kids, all done. They never thought about what if they live? What if they have a long
Some of
life?
those questions, can we just real quick, I like those questions, unless you brought up some of those questions. Can we just go maybe one or two or three? Because that really is going to prompt people. If you're listening today about advanced care planning, some of the questions in Stephen's book, The Heartfelt Legacy Foundation, what do you call that out? It's a worksheet.
Advanced care plan. Yeah,
Advanced care
heartfelt
plan.
advanced care plan.
There's some good questions I know, Melissa, that you brought up. Can I hear those again? Because
Sure.
it really just prompt me to people to really think. Because I'm 56. I'm pretty healthy. I just had a second physical. So I'm looking at buying long-term care insurance yesterday morning, and my guy said, "Well, you're pretty healthy, Percy." I said, "Well, yeah, I plan to live a long time." But then thinking that, then you brought these questions up, and actually it was really interesting. Those three women, they're all young.
Yes.
30 and younger. So can you just mention a few questions to kind of prompt some of our listeners' ideas of, have they thought about that?
I think not just the questions, but the process that you have to go through. Like one of them, must use kidney dialysis machine to keep you alive. Now, people say yes, but have you ever gone to Liberty Dialysis or a dialysis to actually have to go there maybe 5 times a week to sit there for hours to get your blood recycled? Yeah, I mean, that's very daunting. You have to have, the insertion,
The IV.
It's painful. So how long could you do that? Could you do that for 5 years? I mean, that was a question that I was like, oh man, I don't know about that. What about being on a breathing machine, having a machine breathe for you? And then as simple as, could you see yourself in a wheelchair? Go sit in a wheelchair. Wheelchairs are fairly expensive, and they're not the most comfortable thing. I mean, we toss and turn, we always move, but what if your mobility isn't the fact that you can move around? What if you're not able to control your bladder, incontinent? Would you wear briefs the whole time? Put one on. I mean, these type of things, you can't really answer until you're actually in that situation. And then, what about being in a nursing home? Could you be in a nursing home for the rest of your life? I suggest volunteering at a nursing home, and so you can see what the residents actually go through. Their eating, their socialization, the games that they play. Sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want to sit around and play bingo all day. And then some are like, yes, sign me up. So really putting yourself in that person's situation while you're answering these questions, it really is eye-opening. What is your level of care? Is it as having someone take care of you 24/7? Or is it, no, I don't want anyone to shower me or shave me? Well, I mean, or it's just amazing. Like a bowel program if you're paraplegic, those type of situations. So you really have to kind of look in yourself and ask that to yourself. And then you have your family say, this is what I'm able to deal with and what I'm not.
Well, for us, we're still young. Can you imagine 30, maybe 40 years for you, Melissa? More than that to think about. But we gotta finish up the show. We'll have you back again, Stephen and Michael. But any last thoughts about advanced care planning, what we're going to do?
I just want to say thank you to Percy, you, Melissa, for doing your work, Michael, for supporting this effort and giving me the opportunity to be on your show today.
Yeah.
Can I end the show by saying, go to Kukua Mau, their website. You can pull up the Hawaii Advanced Care Directive, take a look at it. You can actually print it out, have a notary sign it, and then take it to your doctor. That's what I did. So it was the easiest way. I don't want people to delay and say, oh, I have to get an advisor. I need to hire somebody. It's just as that easy. And then if you're not ready to sign it and do the notary, just look it over. just look at the wording. Just see what your options are.
Yeah, very good. And hopefully your estate planning attorney or your financial advisor has some experience in the conversation, Stephen. But I know, how do we get a hold of you, Stephen?
Yeah, my office, 524-0251, and we're going to have a website for the Heartfelt Legacy Foundation coming up in January.
Happy holidays, everybody. Aloha. And live well.
Aloha.